The GOP is intent on using the power of the state to punish critics and suppress votes. As one of their former rising stars, Matt Gaetz, faces an intensifying investigation in which authorities seized his phone last winter. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. The Republican Party is currently in the political wilderness. They've lost the presidency in both houses of Congress, and their previous standard-bearer never once cracked 50% approval. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is winning high marks in polls on its COVID response, its early slate of executive orders, and the economy, which is why Republicans are desperately grasping for ways to attack him and ending up with some very bizarre critiques.
John Cornyn tweeted what now we know is a quote from a Politico piece about Joe Biden. The president is not doing cable news interviews. Tweets from his accounts are limited. When they come, unimaginably conventional. The public comments are largely scripted. Biden has opted for fewer sit-down interviews with mainstream outlets and reporters. And he goes on to say, invites the question, is he really in charge?
You got him. He's not tweeting insane commentaries about Arnold Schwarzenegger's Apprentice ratings or retweeting suggestions that Osama bin Laden might still be alive, a real thing Trump did. So the only conclusion we can reach is that there must be a secret cabal of Antifa, deep state socialists who are really running things while Biden sits around having normal thoughts with his normal brain. Republicans are obsessed with the idea that Biden is a puppet. When Trump was like a Muppet they introduced on Sesame Street to teach kids about impulse control. Where all my cookies go? Sorry, CM. I ate them all. These guys actually think Americans want a president constantly tweeting psychotic all-caps stuff at 3 a.m. about having his wires tapped and screaming at reporters on the White House lawn with a helicopter whirring in the background like it's the final scene in MASH. Second MASH reference in 2 days. Come on, TikTokers, bring on your remixes. If you can do it for sea shanties, you can do it for Alan Alda. And with all due respect to Jeremy Renner, that'll always be my Hawkeye. Oh, he didn't have arrows, but he always had a quiver full of quips. Say what you will about the guy, Biden keeps it simple. Yesterday, for example, he was asked about his decision to finally withdraw troops from Afghanistan. Now, if reporters had asked Trump that question, they would have gotten a 10-minute answer that somehow wound its way to the time he met Marlo Thomas at Elaine's. That girl, what a show. She hated me. And you know what? She was right. A lot of evidence out there that I'm a bad guy. But when Biden was asked the question, he was very direct.
Was it a hard decision to make, Judge? No, it wasn't. To me, it was absolutely clear.
A solemn moment and a direct answer. Reporters who cover the White House probably have to figure out what to do with all that leftover space in their notepads. When they were covering Trump's White House, they probably couldn't distinguish between their notepads and their dream journals. They could inject the bleach, or what about powerful lights inside the body? Did I fall asleep reading E.E. Cummings again? So that's one reason Biden's numbers are higher than Trump's ever were, not to mention the fact that Biden's policies are more popular. And as a result, Republicans are stuck complaining that Biden doesn't tweet enough. And as the Cornyn comments show, Trump may be gone, but Trumpism is an ideological project, as well as the performance of Trumpism are very much ascendant within the Republican Party. As we speak, the GOP is actively trying to use the power of the state to punish anyone who disagrees with them. The latest example being Major League Baseball.
3 Republican senators are looking to put pressure on Major League Baseball after it decided to pull the All-Star game out of Georgia, the league making the move to protest Georgia's controversial new voting law. Senators Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, and Josh Hawley are introducing legislation today to eliminate a nearly century-old antitrust exemption for Major League Baseball as a way of punishing the league.
So the America First crowd is going after America's pastime. What's next? You guys going to try to cancel blue jeans and pickup trucks? All right, I forgot. Cruz already canceled blue jeans. Yikes. He really puts the dung in dungarees. I have to say, it's especially surprising that Ted Cruz is going after baseball, given that he has the beard of a 40-year-old journeyman pitcher on a 1986 Topps card. Wearing a uniform from 1918. So Republicans want to use the power of the Senate to punish anyone who criticizes them. They're also plotting to steal the presidency and Congress without actually winning elections. That's what all these voter suppression bills are designed to do. For example, you might remember when Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, flew around the country trying to convince state legislatures to overturn their election results, or when Trump advisor / underground lab assistant Stephen Miller claimed that states Biden won were sending so-called alternate slates of electors to Washington to vote for Trump.
We have more than enough time to right the wrong of this fraudulent election result and certify Donald Trump as the winner of the election. As we speak today, an alternate slate of electors in the contested states is going to vote, and we're going to send those results up to Congress.
You know, obviously, as we explained at the time, alternate slates of electors aren't a real thing, though I bet Stephen Miller tried to use an alternate slate of electors in high school to get voted most charismatic instead of most likely to chase down an iguana on an episode of Planet Earth. But the important point is Republicans are now trying to make that fake thing real. They're actually trying to pass laws that would allow them to subvert election results in their states and award electoral college votes to a candidate who loses. They're not saying that outright, of course, but the actual text of these laws definitely opens the possibility.
We just lived through a president who tried to overturn those results, specifically in Georgia. And there are concerns this new bill would allow potentially for more chicanery, as you well know. Reading from the New York Times, just a brief summary, it says, beyond the provisions on the voting, that's up until Election Day, the new law risks making election subversion easier, including appearing to go directly after some of those officials, like the Secretary of State, who drew Trump's ire precisely because they did their jobs in a nonpartisan way.
It gives state election officials more power to intervene in county elections. State leaders are now able to appoint or remove local election officials.
It's obvious what's happening here. They just want to make it easier to do next time what they tried to do last time. If you wake up to find your roommate holding a pillow above your head because you heard his shoes squeak on the floorboards, don't relax when he goes out and buys slippers. This is all motivated by the unhinged lie that there was widespread fraud in the 2020 election, which there was not. And one of the loudest champions of that lie was Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who was supposed to be one of the leaders in the next wave of Trumpism in the GOP. Gaetz objected to the lawful counting of electoral votes even after the January 6th insurrection and claimed that despite the Trump campaign losing dozens of court cases, they were actually proving that there was fraud.
Election fraud really requires two things. One, a very large pool of unaccounted for ballots that aren't attached to a human. And then second is the rapid processing of those ballots. Then they exclude the observers, and then they just wrap those polluted ballots into a broader universe. And I think that is where we're proving the fraud.
None of that makes sense. I can't even follow the syntax or the metaphors. A large pool of ballots, and then they wrap the pool of ballots into a broader universe of ballots? What does any of that mean? You sound like a tour guide at MoMA trying to describe a Dali painting you're seeing for the first time. So, you know, the bricks are wrapped inside the lake. The lake, of course, represents time? I'm sorry, I got confused. I thought this was the museum with all the big bony things, whatever they're called. You know. Now, as I've been telling you, Gaetz is under investigation for alleged sex trafficking involving his wingman, the former Seminole County tax collector Joel Greenberg, who's been charged with 33 counts and is reportedly cooperating with authorities, including offering information on Gaetz. And every day we get new details about the investigation.
A source familiar with the case confirms Greenberg told investigators details about how he and Gaetz would pay women for sex with cash and gifts, in possible violation of prostitution and sex trafficking laws. According to receipts reviewed by CNN, Gaetz and Greenberg used digital payment apps, including Venmo, to send hundreds of dollars to at least one woman who attended these parties.
Politico has revealed the explosive news that federal agents executed a search warrant and seized Gaetz' phone this past winter.
I'm no lawyer, but it can't be good when they seize your phone. No one's happy to have their phone seized. I don't even like it when I show someone a picture and they grab the phone out of my hand and then I have to mutter, "Don't scroll. Don't scroll," until I get it back. I'm not even happy when my wife asks me to use mine. You want to tell me what this is? YouTube clips of old MASH episodes. I thought you said you were working. I am working. The MASH references are the most popular part of A Closer Look. You are being a real Charles Winchester. Chances are pretty high that if you've broken the law, there's evidence of it on your phone, especially since Gaetz was reportedly using the Cash App and Venmo to make payments to his indicted buddy. It used to be when politicians broke the law, they stuffed an envelope full of $100 bills and met their contact in a parking garage. Now they just Venmo a buddy with an emoji of an envelope stuffed with cash. We also keep finding out more about what these dudes were up to and what kind of parties they were hanging out at.
Now, we've learned these parties were held at a house in a gated community in suburban Orlando. The women we spoke with said when some of the women arrived, there were rules. For example, the first thing some of them were asked to do is put away their cell phones. Now, one of the women told us the attendees included a who's who of local Republican officials and often included Congressman Gates. And these men just did not want their activities at these parties being documented. And we're told folks mingled and shared drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy.
If they ever make a Florida version of the board game Clue, gated community in suburban Orlando should be one of the locations, right next to Animal Sanctuary in Tampa. You know, my grandmother used to say nothing good ever happens after midnight, and I'd say the same is true about anything that happens at a party in a gated community in suburban Orlando where they make you give up your phone. Well, they probably don't want us to use our phones to Google answers for what I'm sure will be a night of trivia games. Oh, cocaine! Looks like it'll be a late night. As a general rule, never go to a party in a gated community in suburban Orlando where they make you give up your phone. Orlando's for two things: going to theme parks or buying exotic fish from an unlicensed dealer who works out of the back of a pet food store. I got piranhas, lionfish, snakeheads, and for another 100, I'll throw in this bad boy. We're also learning more about a trip Gates allegedly took, which are also under scrutiny by the feds, and who he traveled with.
CBS News has learned that investigators are scrutinizing a trip Congressman Matt Gaetz took to the Bahamas with this man, Jason Pierrizzolo, a marijuana entrepreneur, Orlando hand surgeon, and donor to Gaetz.
CBS News reporting that Gates' trip to the Bahamas is part of a federal probe into this sex trafficking allegation. Here's a little bit of it. Federal investigators are looking into a Bahamas trip Matt Gaetz allegedly took in late 2018 or early 2019 as part of an inquiry into whether the Florida representative violated sex trafficking laws. Gaetz was on that trip with a marijuana entrepreneur and hand surgeon who allegedly paid for the travel expenses, accommodations, and female escorts.
An Orlando hand surgeon slash marijuana entrepreneur. Man, Florida never disappoints. I'm shocked Gaetz wasn't also buds with an alligator named Rick who sold CBD oil on the Miami Beach boardwalk. And now the heat on Gaetz is intensifying to the point where Republicans don't know how to respond. Yesterday, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise was asked about Gaetz and stammered his way through an answer.
Do you have confidence in him?
Well, you know, we've heard a lot of stories. I mean, obviously I've read the media reports, but there's been nothing that we've seen yet from the Department of Justice. If something's going on, obviously we'll find out about it. You know, right now it's hard to speculate on rumors, but, you know, if something really formal happened from Justice, we would, of course, react and take action.
Man, it's so funny to watch Republicans get flustered by questions about Gaetz after they let him take center stage for so long. Look, I don't know the facts, but if the allegations about ecstasy-fueled house parties with the dude who was later indicted for sex trafficking and flights to the Bahamas with the marijuana-loving hand surgeon are true, then yeah, I think we might do something about it, right? And as for Gaetz, he continues to maintain the whole thing is a setup egged on by the media. And in particular, he got into a heated exchange with a CNN reporter as he left the Capitol on Tuesday.
Well, I think you can read my essay in the Washington Examiner. I think you can check out the work that your network has done to propagandize lies about me. I think that really ought to concern you, Mono. You've always considered yourself a real journalist, but that doesn't strike me as real journalism.
Are you concerned about the House ethics investigation? Are you going to cooperate with the investigation, sir?
I'd say, along with getting your phone seized, being chased down a flight of stairs by a crowd of reporters and getting hustled into the backseat of a waiting car isn't a sign that things are going great. That's classic corrupt politician stuff. No one ever in that situation is in it for a good reason. Sir, can you tell us how you cured cancer? I didn't cure cancer. Stop spreading lies about me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to be rushed into this unmarked van. This is the state of the modern GOP, an authoritarian movement intent on dismantling democracy and suppressing dissent. Gaetz was supposed to be one of the leaders of the next wave of Trumpism, and now, like so many others in Trump's inner circle, he's found himself in legal hot water. Who knows what'll happen to him, but if he does get taken away by the feds, I hope we can send him off like this. You know what it's been. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated. We love you.